It's a beautiful thing.
We in 6 countries. That's
Yes.
what I mean. So that's the thing that stands out to me.
Shout out to everybody. Shout out to everybody. We love y'all.
Yes, thank y'all for listening.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the channel. I'm Coach Deb, representing one half of the Healing Corner podcast. If you're interested in booking a consultation as well as service or a reading, go ahead and check me out at debshealingcornerstone.com.
I'm Coach Yams, owner of Healing is Work Coaching, and I help millennial professional women to live on purpose unapologetically and to help them to stop doing shit out of obligation. If you need help with that, reach out to me, Coach Yams, YAMZ.com. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Healing Corner podcast. We're here for another episode. This is Coach Yams. I've got Coach Deb here with me, and we are going to get into today's topic. Last episode, Season 5, Episode 7, was about discovering peace, healing insights from Even in the Dark I Surrender. And in that episode, we had on guest Dorcas Curry, who is an author of her book, Even in the Dark I Surrender, My Journey Through Job Loss, Divorce, and Breast Cancer. And so the conversation today is going to be just going further into that space, what surrender looks like, recapping a little bit about what that episode with Dorcas was about, which, let me do that real quick. It's in the title. She talked about her journey through job loss, divorce, and breast cancer. She talked about her experience being an author, how that book came together. She shared about who she is as a person beyond the author, and where she is today and the projects that she's got going on. Deb, how you doing? How you feeling?
Hi, everyone. So, my takeaways, what I enjoyed the most about her book is that she talked about how the book can be used for any age. So I thought that was very useful. You can actually, as long as you know how to read it, you can use it as a tool. And then also, she did incorporate space for you to be able to write down. And so it was very interactive. You're able to put down your thoughts as you journey through the book. So those are some of the takeaways that I got from her book.
Yes. And then a couple of my favorite takeaways were that her book was born as a way to help people. That is my mission also. And so I resonated deeply with wanting to be able to help people through living my experience and then sharing that with others. The other thing that I really enjoyed about her episode was her talking about the first 2 steps being acknowledgement and surrender, which is interesting because there is a life coach I follow, Nancy Levin, and she talks about shadow work. And the first 2 steps of shadow work is acknowledgement and surrender. Her definition of surrender has been something that's helped me through the last couple months, actually. And I shared it with a friend, and it's been helpful. Her definition, Nancy Levin's definition of surrender is releasing your willful stronghold on needing anything or anyone to be any certain way. So that being Dorcas's first 2 points was interesting, especially with it being tied to shadow work.
Yes. Amazing.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna get into this episode. So this is season 5, episode number 8, and this episode is Healing in the Quiet: Untold Stories of Personal Discovery. Deb, you want to start this part of things?
Okay. So, when I think about, being able to surrender, like sometimes when there's so much going on in your life and you feel as though there's not nowhere where you can start or begin, that's a good point to think, okay, it's time for me to surrender. So for me, I've had different circumstances in life that have put me in that position. Um, if I want to go back maybe a couple of years ago, I had my father that passed away. We all know when people transition or when people pass away, this is not something that you can control. It's a part of life. And so I was met with, a un I guess it's expected, but it's you don't know exactly when it's gonna happen. And so my life changed from that point on. Like, I was in a world where I no longer had my father. To me, he was like my protector. He was the one that I always knew I could call on if I needed something. So it kind of shook up my safety nest, as what we would call it. And so I had to allow myself to get into position to surrender and just realize, life continues on, and I have to be okay with this newfound portion of myself. And it also allowed me to like tap into different things, because now I can see how strong I am, because you sometimes you don't realize how resilient you are until you surrender as well. So that helped me to go through this transformation and change, because now I'm in a stage where I no longer have that as a crutch. My younger self, and sometimes when you're younger, you don't really see the importance of people in your life too, because that made me appreciate the fact that I had the experience, and I could just see my growth. Because even now, like, I can see my growth because I'm not afraid to do certain things now. And in the past, I was a little bit more timid or felt like something was more of a challenge. So, and then also, when it came to emotions, I've learned how to use my emotions more maturely, and not to, go off the edge. Because at times when I was younger, I felt like, it's okay to do that. And I realized, like, as life has showed me, and sometimes you act out of emotion. And when you act out of emotion, you might do something that you regret, or something that you feel you shouldn't have done before. So that all those things all led up to like this evolution, this change, and how to navigate them too.
Nice. Thank you for sharing, Deb. Um, and like you said, I've been through my own set of circumstances in life where I've found myself surrendering over and over. And maybe not in the exact same circumstances sometimes, because those circumstances wear on you. But then sometimes you get out of one situation to find yourself in another situation and having to go through the process of surrender again. So I know for me, couple of my biggest surrender moments in life have been when I had to surrender to the fact that the relationship that I thought mothers and daughters should have is likely not going to be my story. And I have accepted that, and I have had to be okay with that and what all of that requires, right? So that means that there's like the challenges of setting boundaries with parents, and the repercussions of setting boundaries, because people don't like when you start to operate differently than how they have grown accustomed to you operating. And so that looks like you getting separated from people sometimes, and there being distance, and you might not talk to them again, or you might, but it looks different. And then it's required having acknowledgments with self about how the relationship that I've had with my mother looks familiar to relationships that I've had in the past. But fast forward, being in a healthy partnered relationship, I have to surrender to the old ways of how things used to look and feel and play out, so that I don't self sabotage something that is working and that is well and good. Because self sabotage is real. And that is a challenge that comes up with having to surrender the old you and let the old you die so that the new you can be born. One of the things that's helped with my journey of surrender and dealing with the emotions was a term I learned years ago in therapy called radical acceptance. You ain't got to like what's going on, but this is exactly where you at, and it just is what it is. And from the acknowledgement point, which is step one, and all the things that we've been talking about, that's how you then are able to say, okay, I'm letting it go. It is what it is. It's going to go how it goes. And now I'm going to move how I need to move for me.
Yes. Yep. That takes you right back to empowering yourself, because surrender is really interesting because it's like I'm letting it go, but at the same time, by me letting it go, I open myself up because you even think about what signifies surrender. Most of the time, you have your hands up, so it's like now your hands are open. So instead of just only your hands being open to release, your hands are open now to be able to receive as well. So that takes you from a state of possibly feeling like a weakness into something that can be seen as empowerment.
Absolutely. And it also opens you up to new possibilities because now that you've stopped trying to control it and force this square in a circle hole, now you can see things with new eyes and new mindset to give you new possibilities of how you can either a take different steps, different actions, or how you might need to take your hands off of it and just let it unfold the way that it needs to and let the universe do what it's going to do, your guide or however you call a thing.
And also, there is a difference between surrendering and giving up, because giving up is when you it's like the energy that you're sending it off in. That's what I think about it as. When you're surrendering, you're saying for the better good, this is what it is. And then giving up is like, I don't really care. I just don't really feel connected to it, and it's like the vibration that you're sending it off in is also going to be a reflection to you in the end. So it's it's interesting because they're similar, but at the same time they're different.
Well, yeah, they are different because one, there's power in making a choice versus feeling like you just put your hands up and you're just going to let whatever beat you down. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to choose to be a victim to whatever the circumstance is. Even if you've not put yourself there, you have the power to say, okay, this is where things are. What am I going to do my part? And then let the rest of it do its thing. Um, And so, one thing that I recognize as an ongoing trend in the the crucialness of surrender is that that's how you heal. Surrendering is how you allow yourself room to heal those things, to let go of old patterns, to see things in a new light, to explore new possibilities. Maybe you thought that you were shy, but that's just something that people told you. And now you're going to events and introducing yourself and seeing how that makes you feel. And then you notice that you're excited and look forward to that. And maybe shy doesn't really fit you. We can start to take off these layers of things that people have put on us that we may have put on ourselves because of beliefs that we've had about ourselves. Maybe you've been told that you're stupid, or maybe you've been treated in such a way that you felt that you just weren't smart enough, and that's just not reality. You have the ability to shift how your world operates, but you've got to be willing to let stuff go that don't belong to you.
Yes. And that's, similar to like the perspective, retraining your mind, retraining your thoughts, and reparenting yourself at times. I have a similar story like Yams. I felt as though actually when I lost my father, I lost my mother, even though my mother's still here. And it's crazy, the irony of it, because when they were both going through something, this was around the same time, my mother recovered, but my father didn't. And so I remember before that happened, I was kind of just like praying to the Most High, I guess what you would say, because I was thinking, like, how am I going to lose both of my parents right now at this time? And I was thinking physically. But when I look forward now, it's like I was preparing myself, but in a different way, because one is still here and one isn't. So, there's that's something that I can't control. The dynamic change. There was a lot of things that happened before this event that led to why there is a separation or a letting go or a surrender to a situation of just now. It's like you can see it in the physical in a way. So sometimes things that we have to look at can come from something that has been going on in the past, and then that gives you more of a understanding of why it's happening now, than to just see it as like, oh, well, instead of saying it's happening to me, you could say it's happening for me. Your perspective is very, very important.
Yes, to all of that. And the thing that I would add to this would be the importance of patience with yourself and with the people around you. And also having the faith and the belief that you're not going to know everything. You're not going to know next steps. You're not going to be able to control the outcome. You're not going to be able to figure out how, if you say this a certain way at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday with your left arm in the air, there ain't no way of like delivering the perfect thing so that everything aligns in a certain way so that it's going to go the way that you think it is. So you can relieve yourself of the expectation of having it all figured out. Be patient with yourself and other people as you go through this, and giving yourself the space to lay all of that down gives you such a sense of peace because it ain't yours to carry. Everybody's reactions ain't yours to figure out. How you feel and how you govern yourself is your responsibility, and how other people perceive that and navigate through that, that means that they have things reflecting to them that they're needing to work through. And you know crossing of paths happen and people have conversations or don't and navigate life, but let go of trying to carry the expectations of knowing how everything has to be, is, be, or will be, because you don't know.
And I was gonna add, because I was gonna say we should share some tips, and I was gonna add some of the tips for especially those that have had a hard time surrendering. Sometimes it can be little things in your life that you can start off with, stuff that is close to you that you deal with on a daily basis, because not all the time do you deal with these life altering events that happen, and it forces you to have to look at a life in a different perspective. But even little small things, like if you want to have a certain goal, I want to stop eating something, so how are you going to surrender that one day at a time? So little stuff like that can start you to be able to prepare you for something that's more significant, or something that could be devastating. Because for some people, some people choose to go the other way. Like we said, the giving up way. Giving up could look like, going into addiction, or taking on something that is not positive for you or your body. So one of the tips I would say, just start off with everyday things, the little things that you see. Okay, I need to surrender this to get the practice. Basically, if you look at it like that, because life is a lesson, life is teaching us as we go. So that would be a tip that I would give. What about you, Yams?
I think from the future end of a thing, I am of the mind that begin to if you decide where you're headed, it's easier to navigate the path. So in addition to what's something that you're like, if you're wanting to get rid of certain foods, also think about the future version of you and what he or she or they need, and how your today actions are impacting that person, and what decisions would this version of you make versus the today you, because going in a direction sometimes helps us be able to take those small steps, because all the small steps eventually get you down the yellow brick road. It don't matter if you took them two at a time or 10 at a time, but if you take them two at a time, you get to enjoy the journey.
And then I like to think about, faith. When you think about faith, sometimes you can't see, you don't know exactly what's about to happen. It's like I'm stepping out and I'm just believing that everything's going to be, you know to my higher good. Some people might call it God, some people say, the most high, my higher self. Just, depends on what it is, that how you see life. But and then also you can see it as a way of meditating too, because when you talk, it's like you're talking to the beyond, you're talking to the universe. Um i i was gonna also say, like, it's important for us to do journaling too, because writing down stuff, like how I was saying earlier, how her book incorporates the writing portion of it. And if you're able to journal down something, you'll see that you actually have more inside of you than you know. I remember I was telling my daughter, because she was saying I forget things, and I told her, I said, your memory bank must be too filled up. So if you take the time to write it down and journal what it is that you feel and release, then you can, in essence, surrender this thing. You know what I'm saying? And be able to have room for more to learn. And you can go past lessons as well, because a lot of times we go through the same cycle. We repeat the same cycle because the lesson hasn't been learned. But once you surrender and let it be known, okay, I've learned my lesson, then you can now begin something else.
And I would add to the journaling bit of things, that when we talking about journaling, we're not just saying like say the things that sound good, or like writing it in a nice, pretty way that, if somebody saw it, they wouldn't be offended. Surrender your truth. You can write whatever you want. Just because you think a thing does not mean that it's something that you action. And that's the beauty in journaling, as a way of being able to surrender your thoughts and not having them inside of you, like a monkey on your back jumping on you, like, come on, you hear me, let's do this. We don't have to action our thoughts. The thoughts can just be what they are, and you can write them down on paper. And then once you're able to dump all of that out, like Deb said, you make room to have new perspective. One. Number two with journaling is that when you sit and you're honest with yourself about how you feel, you make room for stillness, which then opens up options for you to see things clearer. And so if you think about it, if you're always on the go, your calendar is always full, you never make time to think about or process the life that you're living and going through. When do you have time to check in with you and see how you're feeling and see what you're thinking and how that may be impacting how you're engaging with your partner or with your children or with your coworkers? So when you take that moment of stillness, be it through journaling or prayer or meditation, but we especially, me and Deb both, are of the mind that writing things out, and author Dorcas Curry, of course, writing your thoughts out, writing these things out, there's a lot of power in writing. So getting the thing out to make room and space for the clarity is what I wanted to add to that.
I like that. And that made me think of also how journaling is actually showing accountability, because now you're able to do an overview of what your experience is and you're being honest, so that's showing accountability, and that's one of the ways that you're able to even surrender, because if you don't show accountability, it's not surrendering, it's giving up, because giving up is, I don't want to, show my part, or I don't want to be accountable for this. I just want it to just go away. So surrender is not only like you being able to step into a place of faith, and just knowing that you did your best, but when you journaling, you're able to show accountability too. So you might not have to talk to somebody, but you can put it in the book and you could be honest. That's all I had to say.
And one final thing before we move on from journaling. If for some reason, listener out there, you don't feel safe writing your things out, maybe because you are living in a space where you fear somebody could go through your things, digital journaling, it's an option. If you don't have anywhere you think you could do a thing, go make you a Google account and get you a Google Doc, and that can be your journal space. But journaling is therapeutic. I encourage physically writing, but if for some reason you feel like there's a safety concern, a digital option exists. Go ahead.
Oh, and I was gonna add, I like how you said that about if it's not safe. But what I can say in my personal experiences, I have lived in a situation or a place where I felt like my things were being, you know, looked through, and I didn't feel like I felt like my privacy was being invaded. Let's put it like that. But it, in my spiritual journey, I've been shown that you can actually write things and then burn them. And not only are you writing it on a piece of paper, but now you're physically releasing it by burning it. And then you can just see it go up into the smoke, and that can be symbolization of you releasing it out into the universe. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes, indeed. Which takes us into a portion where we talk about the aftermath of surrender. One thing that I've learned is that after you lay a thing all out, you're like, okay, this is the problem, this is what's going on, this is what I need help with. Then you step back and you say, okay, these are my resources, these are my options, and also universe, guide, whoever your higher power, however you think of a thing, do your magic too. Then you start to have the clear perspective. And so then you can start to reframe a thing. And so it goes from, well, I don't ever have the help that I need, to I am in a safe enough place to ask for the help that I need and know that I'll get it. And that empowers you, which goes back to the beginning, is the empowerment that you need to continue to take steps towards being a better version of you. So then you go and you have that conversation, or you send that email, or whatever the case may be. You go do that thing, and then you see that once you've had the faith to take that step outside of the problem, after you've let it go and you've stopped living in that space of fear and control and all of that, you move past that, and then you're able to see in the outside world reflected back to you how you can have what you need. Does that make sense?
I love that what breaks it all down. And then after that, you guys, you have to realize that we have to have compassion for ourselves, because it wasn't easy to be able to go through that. Everybody's story is different, and everybody's situation is unique. So even if I have experienced a similar thing, I didn't experience it within you, or you didn't experience it within me. So having self compassion, that is something that only you can give to yourself. And the next person can be compassionate with you or feel compassion for you, but that self compassion is different because it's coming from you yourself. It's like self love, having enough love for self to be able to have a space for yourself to feel everything. So if you have to cry, if you have to, shout, yell, whatever the emotion is to help you to surrender and be able to move forward, then accept that and just say that this is my truth and no one else can experience it. No one else can be in my body.
Agreed. And if maybe you're new to experiencing emotions and maybe crying is not how you do your thing or you're shouting, maybe it looks physical. Maybe it looks like getting a gym membership and going and running on the treadmill or the elliptical or lifting weights. Maybe it looks like going down to the local spot where you can go boxing and get your frustration out on a bag. Maybe it looks like turning on some music in your house and doing this fun little practice that I did at a retreat this weekend where you put a mask on and you dance like nobody's watching because ain't nobody watching because you got a mask on. And now you're letting your body just do what it needs to do to move the energy out and through you instead of it just staying balled up in your chest or in your head because a lot of us live in our head and letting those things that the internal battles consume us and determine how we're living our life. We can let that shit go. You can do it physically.
Yes. And I just want to plug in Yams, Dancing with Yams. She does that on Wednesday. So you
Yes,
guys.
period. And if you're curious about that, dance with yams, YAMZ.com.
Yes.
And just so that y'all have a space to do a thing, please share your stories of how you've had your own version of surrender that you've had to go through, big or small. Because one thing is for sure, no man is an island, and we are all going through some version of something. And even though it might look a little different over here, the circumstances are different, it still is something that you're going through, and you're not alone.
Yes. That's right. You're not alone, you guys. And your story, the more that we have stories out, the more that we have examples. So if you don't say anything and the next person is going through a similar thing, they're not going to have a story to relate to. So you putting your story out could help the next person. You never know.
Agreed. And at the end of the day, nobody has all this figured out. Nobody's doing it perfectly. And so, do you do what makes you happy, do what makes you smile. Don't take life too serious. You got any final words for the people, Deb?
Um, I would just say, you know, all of us are on different timelines. We're doing this healing thing on our own, but the fact that you're here to try to heal, that already in itself is taking you to the next level. So congratulations. I always like to congratulate when I feel the opportunity. So I'm going to say congratulations to our listeners out there, especially if you've gotten this far, because you're on your way. You're on your way, and things are going to get better from here on out.
And to add to that, the work that you do adds to the healing of the collective, be it present, past, or future, because all of us and all of this is connected. And so, by you doing the work, you're helping to let go of things from your family's past, and from others connected, and just bringing all of this together in a more feel good kind of way. Um, that is our time. We thank y'all so much for listening to the Healing Corner podcast with me, Coach Yams, and we've got Coach Deb. Make sure that you tune in on September 14th because we will be transitioning into season number 6. Season 6, episode 1 drops September 14th. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share, follow, mention, put in your stories, all the things. And until next time, y'all take care of yourselves.